Now back to Smoke on the Water for more Straight Up with Sturge.
All righty, welcome back in. It is 7:26 on this Hump Day edition of Straight Up with Sturge, coming to you live on Talk Sports 104.9 FM. And off to the guest line we go. We bring in Matt Murschell, the college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. And Matt, I'm going to give you an unofficial title. The number 2 king of swag on Twitter, because nobody rocks a bow tie better than one Matt Murschell.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's not a look that everyone can pull off.
Trust me, the 2 Sturgis traits are no neck and a bad back, so therefore I have never been able to wear a bow tie other than the night that I got married, and it wasn't a real one.
Yeah, it's definitely something that takes a little getting used to, but it's one of those things that I enjoy doing and I enjoy wearing, so
yeah.
I think it's helped me out in the past.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. Everybody needs a calling card. Well, Matt, we're sitting here. We're closing in on the halfway point of this 2013 campaign. What, if anything, have you learned so far that you may think is applicable on the backside of this season?
Well, I think one of the things that we learned was that the SEC is still king. I mean, you look at what Alabama has been able to do. Even before the season started, I think everyone pointed at them as probably being the favorites to win the title again, and they've been able to prove that, and I think Oregon's another team that people were thinking was going to have a good season, Ohio State as well. And you look at some of these other teams that are making big pushes. Louisville, for one, Clemson, Florida State. Some teams that I think people thought might be there, but now we're seeing that they actually have the talent and the potential to possibly make a run in a national title.
You just mentioned Clemson. Well, Florida State heads up here next week. And I threw out in the first segment, just in case your bosses were listening, no UCF trip next week. We want you here in Tigertown to take part of all these festivities. Again, that will probably go over like a stone balloon. But, the Seminoles have the week off to get prepared, watch tape. Clemson's going to have a little bit of a physical challenge, or maybe a lot of a physical challenge from Boston College. But it's a game that, right now Clemson has been able to put in the past a little bit this title or term Clemsoning as they've handled their business against unranked opponents. But has Florida State met or exceeded your expectations at the halfway point of this season?
Well, I think they've exceeded the expectations. I mean, I think going into the season, myself, I thought Jameis Winston was going to be the starting quarterback, even though the fact Jimbo Fisher had kind of hinted that he wasn't sure just exactly who was going to start the season. My gut reaction was I felt like it was going to be Winston. And I think the thing that shocked me the most is just how well he has performed so far. I mean, anytime a true freshman steps on the field and you're just not sure what you're going to get from this guy. You're not sure if he's going to, come out and be strong. Is he going to know the offense well? Is he going to be able to bond well with his teammates? And so far, we've been able to see him do that. He's had such a strong performance so far. I think what they did last week against Maryland was one of the most impressive things I think I've seen in a while.
Yes.
I mean, he was able to put up big numbers, when they needed him. And against a team that was ranked and was 4-0, and so people thought might give them a little bit of a problem. Now, the next step is can he continue to do that in the next couple weeks, especially with a big game like Clemson up on the schedule?
Yeah, and what was your opinion of the Florida State-Boston College game? That's a game that has Clemson fans' attention because, listen, that trip to Chestnut Hill, it was a little bit more difficult than expected. So I think that helps Clemson keep their eye on the prize, which is knocking off the Eagles this week. Was it a case that we've kind of seen in some ways home field advantage is huge in college football this year? Or was it just a case where, maybe about 6 times a year you don't go out there and you don't give it your best shot and your best effort?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there was, I think Florida State, the opponents they faced the first couple of weeks weren't really the strongest, and then you get on the road. Again, I kind of pointed a little bit at a freshman quarterback. You get on the road, you're maybe a little bit nervous. There's a little bit of that excitement, energy in you. And I thought early on, there were some plays that he missed, but then you say that and he comes back with a nice 55-yard Hail Mary bomb at the beginning to end the first half, for a touchdown. And I think that the defense really is still trying to grow and mature a little bit. They're making the big switch from, going from Mark Stoops, who was the defensive coordinator last year, to Jeremy Pruitt, who's the defensive coordinator this year. And Pruitt's style is more up-tempo, more attacking. He really wants guys to pressure the quarterback. He wants guys to force turnovers. And sometimes when you get that aggressive, you can kind of miss some things. You miss some tackles, and I think, if you don't get the interception, that can turn into a bigger play. And I think that's what we saw against Boston College.
We're talking with Matt Murschell, college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. And, Matt, when you look at Clemson, what has caught your attention, and what is the word down on the street in Florida about the Tigers as we head into this matchup next weekend? Again, Clemson's got to handle their business against Boston College this week.
Well, I think this is the game that, we talked about early on in the season. Alabama, Texas A&M was the game that everyone was looking forward to. I think this is the other game that everyone really wanted to see. Even before the great starts by both teams, I think people wanted to know what was going to happen. And I think we're sort of seeing that right now, that they know that Clemson's got the powerful quarterback and the powerful offense with Taj Boyd. We're seeing a defense that's actually able to stop some people. I think this is really going to come down to who has the ball at the very end. When you look at this game coming up, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do with kind of counteracting, Jameis Winston. What can they do with the running game? Devontae Freeman has had a monster first start for Florida State, and I think he's done a great job. How can they combat him and Carlos Williams, who's kind of a new addition to the running game as well? So I think that's going to be some things. And how they can handle the attacking defense, like I said, of Florida State. Those are going to be some questions, I think, early on that I'm looking forward to. But this is a game that, again, the one who wins this game is probably going to have a good line set for heading into the national championship race.
Yeah. Now, the league itself, the ACC, carries 3 undefeated teams this deep into the season for the first time in league history. We've been told by the league office at ACC football kickoff over the last couple of years, be patient, improvement is coming. Do you feel we are finally seeing just that?
I think we are. I mean, we're looking at the play. I think some people were surprised by how slow Virginia Tech maybe came out of the gates. They didn't look very good, obviously, against Alabama. And everyone kind of thought, well, this team's not going to do very well this year after what happened last year. But they've been able to turn things around a little bit, especially with their defense and their special teams play. They've been able to kind of get themselves in position. And then Miami. I think Miami was always the wild card, because everyone believed that with this NCAA, sanctions or NCAA investigation overhanging this program, I think people thought we weren't sure what Miami was going to bring to the table. And so far, the Hurricanes have really been the team that I think have surprised me the most in the ACC. I knew they were going to be good. I knew that there was the potential to make a big leap this year. But they've really surprised me, and they've done a great job with that. I think Stephen Morris has been great at quarterback. He's probably one of the best quarterbacks on the Eastern Coast. You look at Duke Johnson, the running game. You look at what their defense is doing, and that's the thing that's really stepped up. Their defense is the top 10 defense in the country, and right now they're really surprising some people. So I think this league is starting to get better. I know that ACC Commissioner John Swarford is really happy about that. He wants to see the league make big strides, especially when you're competing against leagues like the SEC, the Big 12, the Pac-12. You've got to kind of keep your head above water with those leagues and show that you're still a viable challenge for a national championship.
Now, Matt, let's switch leagues over to the SEC, and I have the last 2 days have walked around this subject kind of trepidatiously. But I want to ask you from the outside looking in at what's gone on in Columbia this past weekend. Have you covered this game for quite a long time? Have you ever seen anything quite like that where the coach comes out in post-game and kind of throws a player under the bus, and then 2 days later is coming back in his weekly press conference going, listen, we handled that wrong. You need to be thankful that Jadeveon Clowney's at the University of South Carolina. In all reality, I'm 8 years into this job. This is one of the stranger things I've seen in the last few days.
Well, I think when you look at it, what it really shows to me is that there's a lot of frustration with Steve Spurrier and probably among his coaches as well. He wants Jadeveon Clowney on the field. Obviously, you want all your best players on the field to play. You're competing for an SEC East title. You're competing to try to get into the SEC championship game and possibly for a national championship. When you're not finding out this information and your star player isn't performing at the level that you think he should be performing at, then I think you're seeing some of that frustration. He knows better than this, obviously. The old ball coach has been around a long time. He knows you don't go to the media and voice this. And I think that was a lot of that frustration that came out. that's why the next day he came in and kind of gave his sorry, this is how we should handle things. I can understand where he's coming from. I mean, I got to see South Carolina take on UCF when they were here. Jadeveon Clowney did not look like the player I saw last year. He looked like a guy who was a step slow. He looked like at times that he didn't really seem like the kind of dominating force that everyone thought he was going to be. And I'm not quite sure if that's the injuries, the excuses, if it's the bone spurs, if it's the ribs, what it is. But I know there's something going on there. And we're not, obviously it's kind of coming out in bits and pieces, but I don't necessarily believe that he's playing with his full 100%. And he may be just not wanting to give it all because he's afraid of hurting himself and losing out on a possibility of millions and millions of dollars in the NFL.
We're talking with Matt Murschell, college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. And Matt, as we begin to close up tonight, with the rash of injuries that Georgia has had over the last few weeks, now granted they get a little bit of good news this afternoon as Mark Richt says Michael Bennett should be back for the Florida game. But are the Bulldogs on upset alert with an undefeated Missouri team coming in this week, or is it an undefeated Missouri team that has padded their resume by not playing anybody other than Vanderbilt?
Well, I think it's a little bit of that. Missouri, you look at their schedule, you look at who they've played so far, not the strongest opening schedule, and then they've managed to find their way in the top 25. This game is still a big game. It's still a game that would concern me if I was Georgia because, again, you've got so many injuries on the offensive side of the ball. Before the season started, one of the main concerns was Georgia's defense. But I always said to people, it's their offense that can put the points up on the board. They'll be fine because they'll be able to win in a shootout-type game. Now with the offensive players that they've lost, I'm beginning to wonder if that's going to be the case. I mean, Aaron Murray has been fabulous. He's won some major games with LSU and Tennessee last week. I think, again, you don't want to lean on him once more, and have him try to pull out this big win. But they need to keep moving forward. If they were to stumble in a Missouri game, if the injuries catch up with them and they can't win this game, I mean, that really throws the SEC East into turmoil. That opens the door for South Carolina. That opens the door for Florida down the road, who still has yet to play them, for possibility of them competing for that title. So I think Georgia's in the driver's seat, but with so many injuries, you got to wonder eventually this is all going to catch up to them.
All right, two more questions before we let you out. I've got some subject content for the rest of the show on what have been some pleasant surprises so far in college football. But I want the opposite end from you. What do you think has been one of your biggest disappointments so far this year?
Well, I think when you look at, I think the new targeting rule was, as much as I'm a fan of, looking out for players' safety and looking out for what's, making sure these guys, especially with the concussions and brain trauma injuries, I feel like that rule was put in place kind of harsh, too quickly. I mean, I agree that if a person is targeting somebody, they should be thrown out of the game. But I think when you look at the way the rule is itself, they've established you also get the 15-yard penalty, and even if the person is overturned, the penalty is overturned, you still get that penalty. That's kind of bothered me a little bit. I think if you're looking on the football field and you're looking at some of the play, I mean, right now you just really got to wonder. I thought Notre Dame might be a little better than they are. I thought SEC-wise, I think I look at this the defensive conference that's being known for being defensive, a defensive conference, and we're just seeing tons of points being scored. We're seeing it all over the country. Baylor's doing it, Oregon's doing it. So I think this is not the year if you're a guy who really enjoys defense, which I sort of am. This isn't the year, to be a fan of the defense because you're seeing way too many points and way too many yards put up. Eventually, that's all in sort of a cycle will eventually all even itself out. But as of right now, we're seeing just tons and tons of offense put up.
Yeah, it's amazing in the SEC what good quarterbacks can do to skew the points in a single season. All right, final question for you, Matt. Now that you've roughly had a half a season to digest all this, who raises the crystal ball in Pasadena that Monday night in January?
Well, I'd like to believe it's Alabama. I picked them early on, and I still think they've got the keys to get there. I think their biggest challenger is probably going to be like an Oregon or a Stanford, maybe somebody from the Pac-12. I think Oregon has proven that Chip Kelly. Everyone was worried that Chip Kelly leaving would cause that program to take a dip. It hasn't. They're able to put up a lot of points. But again, Oregon's in the same boat that a lot of these teams are. They haven't faced anyone early on. I like what Nick Saban's been able to do at Alabama as a program. He knows how to get these guys ready to go. A.J. McCarron's probably going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play in college football. So, I mean, I think they've got all the pieces. It's whether or not they can survive the SEC, the rest of the SEC schedule, and the SEC championship game to get there. That's really going to be the question.
All right, Matt, tell our listeners how they can follow you on Twitter, how they can keep up with your work in the Orlando Sentinel. And, I think you're flying out tomorrow to Baton Rouge, correct?
Friday, actually. But, I'm heading out to Baton Rouge. I'm going to go check the Florida LSU game. So I want to see if LSU is as real as people say they are. So if you want to follow me, I'm at on Twitter, I'm at OSMattMurschell. And online, you can just go to OrlandoSentinel.com and sports, and you can find our College Gridiron 365 blog there.
All right, Matt, have a cold one this weekend at Murphy's for me, okay?
All right, I will do. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Matt. Great job. Appreciate it, as always. Matt Murschell, college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. And again, Billis is the king of swag. Matt Murschell's number 2, rocking that bow tie. You don't see that a lot, and man, it fits him. He is such a great guy. Thank you for his time. All right, before we go out to break, we want to tell you about our good friends at Rogers Outdoor Equipment, located at the intersection of Highway 8 and 81 in Piedmont, just 1.5 miles off I-85, west of I-85 at exit number 32. Their phone number is 947-6377, and you can find them online at rogersequipment.com. It's pretty simple. If you need something that has a motor on it that can help you in your front yard, backyard, property, farm, then Rogers Outdoor Equipment has it for you. They have it at the best prices around, but there's so much more that they offer. If you need a tractor, they carry Kubota, best made tractor in the world. And they've got all sizes from the big to the small and everything in between, down to riding lawnmowers. If you need push mowers, they carry Exmark. Those are the best in the business. That's why landscapers come and purchase their equipment from Rogers Outdoor Equipment, because it's the best. And furthermore, Rogers Outdoor Equipment has it at the best prices around. Now, you can go shop in a box store. You know Power Equipment. It's eventually, something's going to happen. If it goes down, what are you going to do? You're going to call a 900 number. Who knows where they answer it? And you're going to get frustrated. And then you're going to have to look up, where can I take my things locally to get fixed? Well, Rogers Outdoor Equipment has you covered because they have a certified service department on site. So why deal with the headache of trying to get something fixed? Just take it back to Rogers. They're going to get you taken care of. They're also, at the point of sale, they're going to handle your warranty support. First, they're going to make sure you're buying what you need. You know, if you think you need the biggest tractor and you tell them what you need to get done and they go, you don't need something that big, they're going to protect you. They don't want you to spend one more dime than you have to for your purchase. Also, again, they're going to handle your warranty support, all your paperwork taken care of. They're going to crank that sucker up, make sure there's no surprises. It's a family-owned business, has been doing the business in that location since the 1950s. That ought to tell you about everything you need to know. Family-owned business in that same location since the 1950s. Great people. Go in there, tell Berkeley King and staff hello. Hey, if you're just in the mood for some good chocolate milk, cheese, they carry all the Happy Cow products at Rogers Outdoor Equipment at the same price that you can get it at the Happy Cow farm. That's Rogers Outdoor Equipment, 864-947-6377. Check them out online at rogersequipment.com for the Upstate's ultimate power equipment dealer. Off the break we go. Phone lines are open here on Straight Up with Sturge on this Wednesday night edition. You got us on Talk Sports 104.9 FM, the flagship station of Clemson Athletics.
In construction,